That way, others could study and learn from them. I was keenly aware of how ordinary I was, so this was a humbling moment. I was not a writer. I had a full and hectic schedule, and attempting to put into a book what I had learned over a lifetime of relating to God seemed a daunting task. Eventually, the publisher assigned an editor, Claude King, to work with me. Claude was and is a spirit-filled, gracious man. He'd listened to me teach. He read over transcripts of my sermons. We spent many hours discussing how God walks with people and reveals His will. At one point, the publisher suggested we call my work Knowing God, but I said absolutely not. My concern was that God's people were already immersed in Bible studies and Christian books that gave them an enormous amount of information about God. As a result, sincere Christians were coming to church every week and learning more and more about God, but they were not experiencing Him. To many, He was simply a faraway God to be believed in, a doctrine to affirm, an invisible deity to whom they recited their prayers. They needed to know He is a person with whom Christians can enjoy an intimate, growing, loving fellowship. I prayed that the result of our efforts would not merely be another course people could take. I asked God to somehow guide us in such a way that through our writing, people would experience a life-changing encounter with a living God. Claude and I enlisted prayer warriors from all over North America and asked them to pray every day that God would guide us to produce something He would be pleased to use to bless His people. Eventually, the material was published as an interactive study entitled Experiencing God, Knowing and Doing the Will of God. The literary world was not standing in long lines to purchase copies of the book upon its release. No one had heard of Henry Blackaby. Interactive studies were not popular, and the publisher did not launch a major advertising campaign. Expectations were modest, to say the least. But something began to happen. A few small groups worked through the study, and they encountered God in a fresh, new way. They and their churches began to experience renewal. Word began to spread that this was unlike any other course people had taken. Before long, we were hearing of God doing amazing things across the country among various denominations, as well as internationally. Often, as people studied the material, they would sense God calling them into Christian ministry. I heard from mission agencies and seminaries that the number one reason people were listing for entering the ministry was that God had clearly spoken to them as they were studying Experiencing God. Many people expressed to us that the truths they encountered helped them become God-centered in their thinking and taught them how to recognize God's will for themselves, their families, their businesses, and their churches. A couple of years later, the material was developed into a trade book, the revised and expanded edition of which you are reading now. Some of the most exciting testimonies have come from readers who are longtime Christians. They've said things like, "I wish I had known these truths 40 years ago. My life and ministry would have been totally different. This is the most wonderful time in my Christian life. I never knew I could have an intimate and personal relationship with my Heavenly Father. My whole life and attitudes have changed since I began this study. I sensed God's call to missions while I was studying Experiencing God. That is how God led me to the mission field. Our church is not the same. It has come alive again. We have started 11 new ministries in the past year." I can't tell you how thrilling it has been for me to see the way God has used that material to impact His kingdom. Experiencing God has been translated into more than 70 languages. I have ministered in 114 countries, and everywhere I have gone, people have tearfully related how God used the book to transform their lives. Countless individuals have told me they're serving in their church or on the mission field or in their current job because of what God said to them while they were studying Experiencing God. I discovered there was a deep hunger in the hearts of Christians to know and do God's will. This has led me to incredible opportunities to serve the Lord. I've been invited on several occasions to minister at the United Nations, as well as the Pentagon and the White House. Many fine Christian leaders, authors, and government leaders have told me that as they were studying Experiencing God, God clearly guided them into their present position and gave them focus for their lives. I also became involved with a dynamic group of Christian CEOs who asked me to help disciple them.